We're on. We're on for another episode, another lap around the sun. This time, it's actually a very special guest.
Hey.
All the way from Victoria.
Yeah.
Greeley.
At the moment. Yeah. Hey, bro. How you doing?
Not bad. I've
yeah.
had a big fucking month.
Yeah.
I've shared so the last 2 weeks. Last week I shared my first guest with Joe Rogan. So Josh Barnett has been on the Joe Rogan podcast like 6 times.
Sick.
And
Sick.
now I've shared a guest with Spanian.
Fuck yeah,
Who
yeah,
is
yeah.
Australia's Joe Rogan at this point. He is the fucking man.
Yeah, bless, man.
He is the man.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm very good, man. Yeah, feeling very centered at the moment. And, yeah, honestly, in many ways, better than I've ever been.
I was just going to... So for people who don't know, because this podcast isn't just rap aficionados, Greeley... I don't know, you seem like a humble man. I don't imagine you'd agree, but you're probably one of the most important figures for Australian hip hop and culture.
Fuck yeah.
In Australia. You really, from what I hear and see, hold down not just the rap, but you hold down the culture. The culture seems like it's almost more important to you than the music.
That's very interesting that you say that. Because, yeah, it definitely is. I mean, music is such an important, integral part of culture in general. You know what I mean? Like, for all different cultures, a big part of what identifies that culture is the type of music they create and listen to. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, music in this day and age can get very disconnected from the culture, I guess. You know what I mean? As the industry of capitalism, which is a part of the culture, you know, like massively, but at the same time, it can separate the perspective of what the culture is from the roots, you know.
It's like you come to Adelaide, you fucking throw up a piece in the city, do some graph.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? You hold it down for me, the rap culture, and especially Australian rap culture, it's so embedded with like skateboarding and graffiti and street sports and street art, and there's just so much that goes into it that isn't just rap.
Yeah, 100%.
Like you that's why when I say you hold it down more for the culture, because you have your fingers in so many different pies of the Australian hip hop and arts scene.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, well, it's interesting you say skate culture, because that's definitely, I think, the foundations of hip-hop culture in Australia is, you know, hanging out at skate parks, those early skate videos that had hip-hop soundtracks. You know, I know that was a lot of the ways that hip-hop infiltrated the youth in Australia, you know.
Yeah, your mate would do a fucking ollie off of 2 stairs and you'd put some funk cores in the back of that and put it on YouTube.
Well, even Tony Hawk too.
Tony Hawk
1.
One of the greatest fucking soundtracks of all time.
Yeah, and you know, just underground hip-hop then. I remember that was a massive gateway for a lot of people to access stuff like Jurassic 5, you know, and where it wasn't that available in isolated places, especially in like rural Australia. But, you know, these games, different things like that.
And you were possibly in the best seat you could possibly be in for the greatest rap battle.
Yeah.
Some might say in history.
Yeah.
Everyone will say in Australian history.
Yeah.
Cursor and 360. I'm sure you've fucking talked about this 750 times.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. And it's still getting talked about. I know that...
I think your podcast with Spanian, I think, really reignited it.
True. Well, I know that 360 just did a podcast and was talking about battling, and I know Cursor just did one as well. I had Disaster, who's a battler from California. He's worldwide. Disaster's one of the biggest rap battlers, but he came to Australia like last month, and he called me up, and he wants to make like a documentary on Australian hip hop culture and battle culture to take back to America. So Disaster called me up and he's like, "Yo, Greeley, can you get me on the phone to Cursor?" And I was like, "I'll try." See what happens. But yeah, the planets aligned, and he ended up catching up with Cursor and doing a podcast about battles, which is the first time I know Cursor's really spoken on it.
I was just going to say, I don't think I've ever seen Cursor do fucking an interview.
Yeah, he's done a few.
He's done a few. Like long-form podcasts, I don't think I've seen one.
Yeah, no, he's definitely done a couple, but yeah, Curse, you know, he's very clever about where he invests his energy, you know, and he was keen to do it, and it was really cool to hear because, you know, they both hit me up afterwards and they had a really good chat and talked about all sorts of different stuff, and Yeah, it's very interesting with battle rap, bro, because it's definitely like there was such a massive wave of it, and then it's died down again. But I feel like it's coming back.
I was watching your rap battle with 360, which I think you won, by the way.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I thought you won pretty clearly.
Yeah, thank you.
And I noticed in the corner of my eye, is that complete in the background?
Nah.
There's a bloke, and I looked in the comments, and a couple other people said the same thing. Is complete in the background of that
Was
video.
he bald?
Yeah, and he was wearing a blue
No,
jacket.
Schemo. It was Schemo
right. It
from
looked like
Sydney.
a young complete, and
Yeah, right.
a couple other people
That's
were
funny.
a couple other people were saying it in the comments, and then someone wrote the funniest comment. I believe it's the pinned comment on the video. It goes, Greeley beating 360 in a rap battle is in the top 5 best things Tasmanians have ever done.
True. Yeah, for sure. Fuck, it was a long time ago now, man. I was only 20 when that happened.
You look pretty young.
Yeah, and fuck, it was monumental for me, bro. Because growing up in Tassie and watching the rap battle scene, watching the World Rap Championships, and I was a big fan of 360. He was definitely like such an impactful lyricist in Australian hip hop and in battling. You know, his style definitely reflected a lot of real battle culture from that era. He was, worldwide experience. He was in the World Rap Championships where he battled over in New York, and
I don't reckon enough people put respect on 360's name, eh?
Yeah,
When they talk about Australian rap like goats and stuff,
Yeah.
he's fucking good, man, and he has so many bangers.
yeah, bro.
And he understood how to get onto radio.
100%, man. I think, and hip hop in Australia definitely deals with its own cringe issues in different ways, but yeah, 360 is definitely one of the most impactful lyricists to ever affect this scene. And whether you like him or you don't, or whatever your perspective is, I think a lot of people's perspective on him, if they don't like him, is probably a bit unfair, And yeah, I felt for him when he kind of went through a big wave of a lot of people hating on him, because I remember the core things that he did to impact the culture that helped everyone else. You know what I mean? That 360 and Curse of Battle wouldn't have been what it was without him as well, And I think everyone deserves their dues and deserves their flowers. And I think 360 is yet to finish. I think he's going to make a big comeback in a lot of people's lives. He already has. He's back on tour. He's doing really well. A lot of people are just living in their bubble and they're like, 360. But yeah, he's on his journey, man, and he's doing really well from what I can see.
And then I can almost taste a Cursor resurgence soon.
Yeah,
I can taste it. That last fucking drop, bro, that exploded.
it did, didn't it? And I know, Cursor's at a very peaceful time in his life where
Doesn't need to do it.
he doesn't. But life's life. You know what I mean? And we all need something to keep us going. And it's interesting when you make crazy goals that you work hard to, and then you get to the other side, and you're kind of like, well, what do I do now? And, Curse had a 10-year goal that he achieved, and more than that, and he did it. And he's really, a testament to his hard work and his character and everything that he really has stood for, And, so who knows, man? It's always twisting and turning, you know what I mean? There's times where I think, maybe shit's not going to happen, and then, boof, things align again. It just depends as people grow and where people are at their point in their practice of the culture, because a lot of us were convinced that we needed rap to make money, and then you get to the other side of that, and then you're like, if you do make the money, and then you're like, well, what do I do now? You got to find a way to do what you love. That's priceless, is doing what you love. So yeah, it's real interesting, man.
Did you when you were watching it live, did you think it was going to be as impactful as it was, or were you like, oh, that was dope, or were you like, oh, that was different?
I definitely feel like I had some I could foresee what it was, because I was very passionate about that battle happening. 360 was the biggest name in Australian battling, and I remember after I battled him, and I was mates with Curse, and Curse and I had always kind of talked and tried to find ways to help push him up as well. Before, at the same event where I battled 60, Curse had battled Caustic, who was a rapper from Brisbane. And yeah, at that time I was kind of climbing higher in the battle scene than Curse was, and him and I were always like, how can we keep pulling him up? So that's kind of why him and I battled each other after I battled 60, because it was going to set that one up. So if you look at the culture and how it unfolded over those 2 years, yeah, I guess I was able to kind of come from Tassie out into the country and battle around the country and help kind of create the hype ramp that led up to it. You know what I mean? And it's interesting now because so many people just remember that battle and don't remember the battles that happened before it to build up. But it was like the first Got Beef was March 2010, and that's when all of us were in the same room. And all the way up to December 2011, where 60 and Cursor battled, it was, you know, building blocks for the whole scene to lead up to that moment. And, you know, Cursor just dropped his album, 60 dropped his.
It's a perfect storm.
It was the perfect storm, man.
It'll never happen again. Like, it's hard to recreate.
It is, because, like, I mean, even if they battle again, it's not what it was, you know, because it was it was so youthful, you know what I mean? Like,
hungry.
Yeah, we were all in our early 20s, you know, like, so it connected with the youth so much. Then, it'd be interesting doing it now that we're all in our late 30s.
And you've got no hate left in you.
That's it. Like, especially everyone's kind of going on their own journey.
What, he's going to rap about how successful you are.
Yeah, you know, that's it. I get asked if I want to battle 60 again, and it's like...
Do you have it in you to be mean like that?
Not really, bro.
Like, if you, like... I don't... Because when I was watching it, I was like, oh... You sound like a completely, not even the same human being.
Yeah, I used to use so much, I just had so much anger from circumstances in my life, and battle rap was a good outlet for it in many ways. Some ways it wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely negatives that came from it as well. Enabling myself to be a part of a culture that really encouraged toxic masculinity. And that's kind of why it died, because it went from, oh, this is fun on YouTube, to everyone just turning on each other and just, you know, who knows what about this person that they can fucking dog them for in a battle. And it just stopped being fun. It just became like heaps of paranoia. And that's still like, right now I feel the scene coming back together, and a lot of the old heads, myself included, are just like, are they still trying to fuck me over? You know what I mean? Like, do you want to battle, like, to do something cool, or are you trying to get me? You know what I mean?
Who has receipts on me?
Yeah, bro. Yeah. Especially at this age, you know. But yeah, on my own journey of like, forgiving myself for the mistakes I've made and all this. None of us are in any place to really judge each other, and I feel like, you know, there's a place in the world for that, and there are people that still operate in that energy, but. Yeah, it's an interesting one, man.
I'm still a real spiteful motherfucker.
That's fair enough.
I haven't learned how to let go of spite yet.
For sure. That's a hard one, man. And I feel that, like, you know, with spite and that sort of shit, it's a daily effort, you know, because this doesn't feel good to carry it. You know what I mean? Like,
I wouldn't say I'm spiteful. I'd say I'm like, if someone brings me in energy, I'm not going to be the bigger person and bring them like a good energy. If someone's giving me shit, I'm not going to not give them shit back.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. I don't have it in me to like take the high road yet.
Yeah.
On certain issues.
That's fair enough, man. I can relate to that, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a real learning curve.
It is, man. It really is. And like, the better you get at it, like, I just do it for my own peace. You know what I mean? It's like, because, I've carried a lot of different shit over the years. And these days, carrying that shit could affect my world and how good it is now. So, yeah, I'm always trying my best to not reflect or project things that, you know, I'm at a point now where it's like I'm strong on my boundaries, you know what I mean? And if someone brings me that energy, and it's just like, there's my boundary, you know what I mean? And that's what I'm trying to practice and not lash out, because people are hurt, man, and people, you know, when they see someone speaking their truth or being vulnerable, it can trigger their stuff that they're carrying. And I've definitely copped that a lot in my journey of like expressing myself honestly. Copping a lot of reflections on how it makes people feel, whether they understand what I'm saying or whether they don't, you know. It's,
You seem to, like, I wouldn't say always be in the right place at the right time, but it seems like you do have, like, a knack for being there for really cool shit. Like, then you have, like, you obviously have you in 360, then you got Cursor in 360, and then you got Spanian in Hobart, which is definitely one of his most fucking famous videos.
That was a carry on.
That was that looked like it was fucking mental.
Yeah.
Even Dundee, when I did the podcast with Dundee, he's like, you would never see anything like what was going on.
Yeah, it was really full on, and it was so interesting because Spanian got locked up that night.
Did he? Oh yeah, so he got caught for like, was it disturbing the peace or some bullshit?
That's what they charged him with, but it was pretty interesting, man, because I organised the whole thing. Like, and the cops raided Spanian. Like we left, we you know, by the end of that episode, we left Bridgewater. I remember Dundee gave us a lift back into town. We dropped Spanian off, and I went back to Dundee's house. And then a few hours later, I got a call saying he was in lockup, and I was like, "Fuck, what do I do?" And I felt bad. Like, do I go down to the station and try and like get him out? Because you know he hit me up, and I lined it all up. And then one of my mates called me. He's like, "No, I've got a good lawyer for him." Boom, boom, boom. You know, and he was out the next morning. And I found out, the cops like fucking interrogated him. They went into the hotel. They full SWAT teamed him. You know what I mean? Got him to the station. They went through his phone and they saw like our whole conversation. They let him go the next morning. And like the next day, bro, I was walking through Hobart Mall and I see about 5 or 6 coppers harassing some teenagers, like just the Ashays in the mall. And the Ashays look at me and they're like, "Grills," and I was just like, "Shh." But then the cops turn around and they just all look at me and go, "Greeley?" Like that. And I was just like, "Cops?" Like, it was just fucking weird, man. So I got out of there. I went back to Melbourne a couple of days later, and I even called my lawyer and I was just like, "Can I get in trouble for this?" And she's like, "I don't think so. Just get back to Melbourne."
For doing what?
Well, man, like, so what happened was, when we were in Bridgewater, from what I understand, it started kicking off the burnouts and the lads on the bikes. It was all happening. Everyone's getting real excited. And Spanian was like, "Oh, I really want to record and talk." And we couldn't talk because this was, And so we cruised over this hill. And we're on the other side of the hill from the initial landing spot in Bridgewater. And in the landing spot, I think's where, from what I heard, a cop clotheslined a teenager off a motorbike.
Oh.
And then the teenager's older brother jumped on the cop car, jumped through the window. Cops come, suburb fights back. Apparently at one point there was like 10 kids just throwing rocks as the cops were running away. It was all happening. But we weren't aware of that. We were on the other side of the hill filming the vlog. And then one of the lads had pulled up on their bikes and they're like, "Just letting you fellas know, fucking it's kicked off and they're arresting people on the other side and the window's been jumped through." And at that point, Spanian and I looked at each other like, fuck. Oh, well, let's send it. And we just started walking down to the middle of Bridgewater in the shopping centre. And it was like, here's the hood Jesus, man. It was like, as we were walking...
just parting the seas.
Bro, the sun came out and shined on the back of his head and the cross on the back of his head was illuminating. And, I know a lot of these families, man, from prison, from, like, community work in Tassie. I'm related to half of them, you know what I mean? Like, it's a small place. And everyone was so happy, bro. It was such a blessed day, everyone in those areas that really, they struggle to kind of see a lot of positive perspective sometimes. There's a lot of, crime, drugs, and just generational misery. A lot of the families in those areas are directly just descended from convicts that got sent out 200 years ago and have been stuck in the same generational cycles. So to see Spanian in those areas and to see the kids so happy, the parents so happy. I saw people that had beef with each other for 20 years standing together in the street just because Spanian was in town, bro. That was God. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I see as the definition of it. Not calling Spanian a God, but the more that he
His
allows
presence.
God to work through him, and he's so vocal in that. I've seen so much transformation in all of it, and I was so blessed in so many ways. So when I looked on Facebook and everyone's like, man, I copped it. After that happened, I got to see what every Tom, Dick and Harry thought about me. Everyone that's been nice to me for years. "Yeah, Greeley's really a scumbag, this, that." I got to see it all, but it was such a blessing, bro, because the truth will set you free. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, good. Thank you. I wanted to know, It was, real interesting.
He seems like he's fucking paving a path at the moment.
He is, man.
He's fucking walking to the beat of his own drum. He does whatever the fuck he wants. Everything he's touching right now is turning to gold through his hard work.
It's God, bro. It's God, man. It's God working through him. And, like, this is the thing, bro. When you surrender like that, and in the hardest times, and Spanian's been tested through all this, you know what I mean? Like, he was a hard lad, bro. Like, I had stories about him before he got out, you know what I mean? He was not to be fucked with. And to see where he's at now, and he's getting random Karens abusing him in the street, and he's not snapping, you know what I mean? The more he keeps not feeding into that, I know a lot of people have different opinions on things that he's said and put out there because, he does come with a strong belief on certain aspects that don't include everyone. And each to their own, you know, everyone's journey with God or understanding life is entirely up to them, you know. But I see all of it as, you know, for me it's just acceptance, forgiveness and patience, and doesn't matter how hard the tests are, just keep making positive contributions to the universe around you. And yes, I see Spanian's whole life as a massive, it just keeps leveling up, bro, you know. And I feel that, yeah, through his surrendering in the way that he lets go of the hard shit that comes to him, because fuck, people come for him. The Tassie cops locked him up for a night in dirty old remand in Hobart, and he still got out like, yeah, Spanian, yeah, what la, you know, like just boom, you know. And the more I see him move with that energy,
it helps that he's genuinely a very, very hilarious fucking person as well.
Yeah.
Like, bro, his series, I can't more remember. I think he was in Thailand, and he accidentally got high.
Yeah.
Bro, I was pissing myself.
Yeah. Oh man, I commend him for how transparent he is.
Yeah, he's very funny, but very serious man.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I like him a lot. And it's interesting because you can tell Spanian's like, he's been through a lot, bro. And, you know, he's still just trying to navigate his own personal life also by going through this dramatic change. And
it'd be hard for an ex-con to have people fucking running up behind you for photos and shit.
It's hard for everyone, bro. Yeah. It's hard for everyone. Look what happens to anyone that gets famous. You know what I mean? You have to go through a lot. Like, it's a hard job, and I don't think people realize what it is until it happens for you. But you're like, oh shit, you know, it's not all it's cracked up to be. You know, it's a blessing if you can turn it into a financial, you know, stream. You know what I mean?
But then fucking going to the shops just to buy milk and eggs becomes like 20 photos.
Yeah, well, people objectify
you
because they stop treating you as your own individual.
You're a product now.
Yeah, well, you exist to them in their head as what they see you as, and if you don't fill up to that expectation, you know, so many people, well, I watched this, I should expect this, and it's just like completely disregards who anyone is. You know what I mean?
That's why I understand totally when like you see celebrities tell fans to fuck off sometimes.
Yeah,
because you know that, like, if you're a like Spanian's still able to go to the shops. If you're a celebrity, like, I wouldn't know what to say. Like, if you're a Hollywood celebrity, like a fucking adored a fucking Brad Pitt, people still know who Brad Pitt is. Like, if you're like an A-list celebrity and you can't even walk to the shops, and the 1,000th person is like rammed their phone to your face for the day, and you just tell one of them, can you please fuck off?
Yeah.
That's going to be what makes headlines the next day, not the 999 that you took a photo with.
I've done it quite a few times, man. I've been in heaps of fucking shit situations, in toxic relationship, and I'm having an argument with my girlfriend in a public place, and then some person comes up and goes, "Oh, grills," and I'm just like, "Fuck off." Like, you know what I mean? Like, and yeah, bless, you know, like, yeah, life's life, you know, and it's and yeah, I try and always counter times where I've lost my capacity, and you know, sometimes I really can't deal with it because, once again, if people see you and how they choose to, they can project their lack of a moral compass onto you. You know, I get some people that come up to me and say the most outrageous shit, and I'm just like, you wouldn't say this to anyone else, but because they watch me all the time on the internet, they're just like, oh, well, you know, and it's just very interesting, bro.
Would you, so I don't obviously know much about your past, but what was like your flavour? Was it drugs, alcohol? Did you have addiction problems?
Yeah, I still struggle with addiction.
You still do?
Yeah.
What was your vice back in the day?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, weed's always
weed.
That's been the long going one. But you know, like in Tassie, when I was coming up as a teenager, the drugs that were available back then, you know, it all started with ecstasy and good pingers. When MDMA was actually in pills, and it was a mind-opening time. I dealt a lot of positive experiences from that. You know, I think I was about 16, 17 when I really decided to try all the drugs. And it came from like growing up in a broken family that was also religious and tried to, you know, push me down that path. But the trauma that I was feeling from being in a broken family didn't align with what I was being told, you know. So I kind of went on my own journey to try and find my own connection. So I tried all the drugs. I tried, you know, MDMA, acid, mushrooms grow very available in Tassie. They're everywhere, you know, especially in winter. Yeah, fuck, there was so many different synthetic drugs back then as well. You had like 2CI when Meow Meow came in, that synthetic shit, the Israelis, the blue caps, when pingers like stopped being available and everyone was just hustling synthetic powder. There was that bath salts that came from China that spread across the country. I went through all the waves of it because a big part of my early 20s and being out in the nightlife came with, you know, drugs and, you know, being popular as well. When I started to make a name for myself, everyone was shouting me drugs, and yeah, I got hooked on the high of that, from the validation from people thinking I was cool, and then the extra bit with the drugs on top. And you know, that's a pretty good buzz when you're in the club and you're high and everyone thinks you're the fucking man, you know what I mean? And yeah, so been through a lot of that different stuff. I'm very lucky alcohol's never really got its hooks into me.
Alcohol's the fucking worst one too. Besides all, you can really obviously do a mischief on methamphetamine.
Oh yeah.
But alcohol's definitely in the top three. Alcohol.
It's the creeper.
Because it slowly gets you, and you just turn into a dickhead. That's the effect of being drunk. Like you turn into a fucking idiot.
Yeah, unfortunately, man. And
that's my favourite way. That alcohol will always be my favourite high because I just love with mates. Like I've never been like a solo drinker. Like I'd never even have a beer unless I was getting drunk.
Yeah.
I'm not like a 1, 2, 3 beer guy.
Yeah.
I'll have 20
for sure.
But besides alcohol, amphetamine, obviously, like ping is like a good pick. Like you said, MDMA or something that kind of like makes you love everything.
Yeah, there was some positive experience with that. But then also I remember like everyone was hooked on that love. And then, like, you'd have everyone shitty on a Friday night because they couldn't get pingers. And they're like, yeah, well, I'm not going to have a fucking good weekend until I get a 10-pack. Fucking do you? Have you got hold of him yet? No, I haven't got hold. Have you got hold of the other one yet? No. And it was just like that. Then all of a sudden, at midnight, the pingers would rock up and everyone would be like, oh, we can have a good time now. You know what I mean?
You feel like fucking shit on Tuesday.
Yeah. So it's like, it's interesting looking back on it. But then, and Coke was never really available back then, especially in Tassie. It was like a once-in-a-blue moon drug, you know, not what it is now. Coke, I see, is like the new, you know, acceptable meth.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, and but I discovered meth really in WA before it hit Tassie really hard. I know it was down there, but Tassie was, old school speed, a lot of bikie speed, which was like the wet sort of shit. And I discovered meth in Perth before I knew how bad it was. And
a lot of meth in Adelaide back in the day.
Yeah.
Everyone was smoking crack in Adelaide back in the day.
Yeah.
Early 2000s, mid 2000s, that was the preferred drug of choice.
For sure.
It's because it's effective. Like it does what it fucking is meant to do.
Yeah, man. And I mean, when I first discovered it in WA, it was very acceptable over there.
Yeah.
On a higher class level, you know what I mean? And it wasn't until I really got back to Melbourne and then saw the depths of the addiction and how far people could go.
Putrid.
That made me go, all right. And then I went back to Tassie and I got off it because it really wasn't available down there. But then I watched it sweep in and just fry the whole island, and, you know, and then, it's still so much fucking trauma being repeated due to meth addiction everywhere now. You know, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's obviously I've grown up and I've grown out of like those kind of circles, so I don't see those kind of people. But it's fucking, when you see like a full-blown crackhead, you feel terrible for them.
Oh yeah, man.
So I just finished have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
I literally just finished watching it for like the 5th time. And every time I watch it, I'm like, oh fuck.
It's so tragic, man. And it just rots people so quickly, you know, like, and especially for people that are dealing with, you know, deep trauma. And because the thing is with trauma, it's an adrenaline hit, you know, like when you go through a traumatic situation, your brain releases an insane amount of adrenaline and endorphins to compact the trauma you're going through.
Yeah.
And that's why people recreate the same situations, because they're trying to get that hit. And then all of a sudden they smoke a meth pipe and then boof, I got that hit. You know what I mean? And it makes them feel that heightened that they don't realise actually comes from a really nasty time in their life.
I also obviously I'd never advocate for like a young kid to dabble with like drugs or alcohol, binging or anything, but I also feel like I feel bad for people that haven't had a stint like that in their life. Because truly, like, some of the funniest and best memories of my life have all been on some form of sesh.
For sure.
Like when it's going good. Like,
yeah.
And not when you're like obviously abusing it and you have like an addiction issue, but when you're with like your mates and you just have a really loose night and someone's going on a fucking really chaotically dumb mission to go get a bag of weed that's 5 kilometers away. And you like, do you know what I mean? Just those memories.
Oh, of course.
Of like 15 to... honestly, my favourite era was when we all started drinking when I was like 15 and we trekked everywhere.
Yeah.
Like those treks home, bro, with like Bliss and Esso on or Funkors on or Hilltops on, and you're trekking through these fucking paddocks, just going to a fucking football club party with your mates, with a sack of goon,
100%,
trying to get a route for the first time.
yeah. I understand completely, man. And yeah, I've got all the same memories, you know, and there's definitely a benefit. It's all perspective, eh? And, you know, there's a lot of people that don't have those experiences that I know. Like, I've got a mate who's 30 and he's never touched a drop of anything. Not once in his life. Drugs, alcohol, nothing. And
that's baffling, isn't it?
I know, yeah. And he's, you know, it doesn't change anything in who we are as friends. But if anything, I have a lot of perspective that can help him when he's going through something that that I've gone through. You know, like it's all perspective, but it is what you make it. I think there's so many other ways that we weren't really culturally kind of close to access same points of sort of experience. You know what I mean? It's like we grew up in such a colonial system of like boredom. You know what I mean? It was like so hard to have a good experience without using drugs or alcohol to kind of get you off the train tracks and out having a loose time. You know what I mean? It's very interesting, bro.
When did you start? Were you a painter when you were younger?
I started graphing really when I was about 16.
Were you like graphing, or were you hunting like panels, or?
No, we didn't really have trains in Tassie.
Like literally.
Yeah, they used to have passenger trains once upon a time.
Yeah.
The train yard, which was mainly full of freights and a couple of coalies going up and down the island. So yeah, train culture wasn't a part of our graffiti scene at all.
Interesting. That's to me, for some reason, obviously. I'm not, like we were talking in the car, I'm in no way, shape or form in the graph scene, but they're my favourite episodes to do.
Yeah.
Because someone put me onto the Doco Jizzo like fucking 6 years ago, and I'd never really been into graffiti like writing. And then I watched Jizzo and it's a parody of like a real person. But like I just got hooked on the idea of trains, and then I started researching and I was like, oh, these guys are fucking nut jobs.
Yeah, it's a massive adrenaline hunt, that one. You know?
It's a totally different sport.
It is.
It would be like if painting a piece is a marathon, train's 100-meter fucking sprint, flat stick.
Yeah, it definitely comes with its different goal.
Yeah.
You know? And I know train painters that don't like people that paint walls, and there's always a back and forth between elements of that, you know, but I've never really painted trains, man. And like, I've had people hit me up and like, you're not a graph writer, you haven't painted a train. I'm like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm not running from the police.
Right, yeah, you know, like, for me, you know, painting is a process. It's a...
At the end of the day, as much as they don't want to admit it, they're just artists. Just using a different fucking, like, medium.
100%.
But some graphers would hate that. But, like, I had this discussion with a couple graphers on here. There's, like, a certain, much like music artists and much like graphers, there comes a point where you can you're bridging the gap between a graffitier and an artist. Like, what some people are doing with cans now could be put in a fucking museum.
Oh, yeah.
And then, like, same with rappers. You got to kind of, one day there will come a crossroad if you want to be really successful where you have to kind of see yourself more as an artist and really zone into that and think on like a different level.
Yeah.
Because if you get stuck in just wanting to be about a culture or just wanting to be about the scene, you might be a legend in the scene, but you'll never be as good as you can be.
Yeah, that's it,
if you're putting yourself into this little box.
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting point of view, and like I know a lot of people that live in the graffiti mind state of smashing it for the sake of smashing it. It comes with a lot of self-destructive lifestyle choices. You know what I mean? And it's an interesting one. The older we get, and yeah, fuck man, like a lot of graffiti can lead to crime. It can lead to substance abuse. It's a hit at the end of the day, and I know that it taps into our deep territorial sort of instinct. The same with dogs pissing on trees, man. A grapher that's hooked on bombing that needs to get up is the same internal instinct of like, mark my territory.
There's a fucking pole right there.
Yeah, and if someone gets hooked on it, bro, like I know guys that have like been on their last chance, have families, a good job and everything, and they just can't help it. They go out bombing and then get done and do 5 years, and
it's
everything
crazy.
Breaks apart,
It's
and
so crazy that you can go to prison for graffiti now.
Yeah, oh, fucking oath.
It's just, what was the homeboy in Victoria? But with the one that, what was his
Pam.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, but he was carrying on and doing a bunch of other shit too.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
I don't know the full story. I thought he just got pinged for the bird.
No, I think he fucking sprayed a train guard in the face. And it is what it is. Like, if you want to do that and that's your life, fair enough, man. Like we had young fellas in Tassie that were coming up in the graph scene, and man, you can go all city in Tassie in a week if you want. You can cover that fucking island. It's not much. It's 5 hours from the bottom to the top. If you're clever and you got enough paint and petrol, you can fucking smash it. And yeah, I was doing workshops through one of the councils down there, and one of the ladies in the council really appreciated what graffiti could do for youth that applied themselves. Because I was one. Like when I started doing legal graffiti stuff, it was because my mates got caught, and then they got told for community service they have to paint a youth centre, so I came and helped that out. And then the council was like, oh, you guys are really talented. How about we give you some work? All of a sudden, we're getting paid to paint primary schools, and we're only 18, you know what I mean? And that was a good feeling.
Free paint.
Yeah, well, free paint, and doing big pieces and characters and trying to do productions, and it was a blessing, But yeah, one young fella in Tassie, he just crunched the whole island. And the lady from the council called me up, and she was like, Grills, can you tell him to fucking chill out? The cops are on us hard, and I don't want to give him up, but if he keeps fucking crunching, I'm going to have to. So can you let him know? And I said to him, I'm like, bro, go to Melbourne. And then like 3 months later, I went to Southern Cross Station, and I'm walking out down the big escalators they got, and I look across, and on the rooftop, there he is. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you know what I mean? Come over the big smoke. Smash over here, like...
Who is one of the most prolific or like well-known graphers from Hobart?
Of the younger generation, I'd say Angry is one of them. He's definitely gotten out and smashed around the country, and like, yeah, he's done a lot of. He's really, since he was a young fella, really got out there. Do you have your own style over there? Well, yeah, definitely. Like Topsky is our OG. Topsky, in my opinion, is the grandfather of Tassie hip hop, and he was more a graph writer than he was a rapper. Actually, he was half and half, but like Topsky was a really good artist, and still is. And but then High Five moved down. This really good writer from WA moved down in the late 90s, and he definitely brought a lot of style into the island, and taught people a lot of tricks. And yeah, there wasn't much real wild style before he came down. But yeah, there was hand styles. My E's are still learnt off probably one of my mates I grew up with. And
that was a nice piece you did, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. Shout outs to Damon. That was fucking sick.
That was a nice piece.
He pushed me heaps. That's what I really enjoyed painting with him.
Was that under the bridge?
No, it was in Port Adelaide by the waterfront.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I thought you went to the city.
No, it was right on the water.
That was nice.
Yeah, thank you, bro. Yeah, and it's cool, man. I love it, because rap has definitely been my main element that I push my skill in, and for years I just gonna paint my piece, do me techniques I know, and Yeah, I've definitely gotten comfy in that. And in the last year or two, I've been hanging out with Bias B a lot, and we've really connected and really motivated each other in different ways. We made a bunch of music together. He was on my album, I was on his album. We went painting a few times, and just watching Bias, man. Like, he's 50 now, and he's
Killing
still,
it.
and he's just hungry again.
He's killing
like,
it.
he painted the panel up at Harry's Hip Hop Shop in Melbourne, and he called me up, and he's like, "Yeah, that's the best piece I've done." And I'm like, "Yeah, Bias, you know, like, fire it up. That's what we want, you know." And yeah, so to see him in his 50s refinding his fire and spark for the craft, that's what it's about, man. That's the culture.
What did you mean?
know?
You posted a story after you went graphing, and you were saying how it was interesting how Adelaide's rap culture's like a bit different to other states.
Yeah,
you
well-
were talking like I can't recite the story word for word, but
Yeah.
you were talking basically about how Adelaide's a bit different to everywhere else.
Yeah, well, every city's different, and like it comes with its own colonial backgrounds. That's, I think, what forms the culture before, you know, this new kind of wave of culture. And if you look at like Adelaide's culture and how it was founded, you know, it was founded very well to do. You know, like Tassie and Sydney, they sent all the convicts to. So when they founded Adelaide, a lot of the wealthy people that didn't want to live near the crims kind of helped build the city in Adelaide, and hence the wineries and just that kind of shtick of Adelaide. But when you know, in places where you have a gentrified, comes with a harder underworld, you know. And I've noticed even with the underworld in Adelaide, they've got their own unique character and personality. And after doing time, you can realise that, like, there's different elements of culture that affects all of it, you know. And then you got to look at, Australian hip-hop history, you know, obviously, a lot of, like, Sydney early days and Melbourne early days, and then Obese Records being one of the pinnacle moments of Australia, you know. And from what I know, it was Reason that told Pegs, you should check out these young... No, forgive me. It was Reason that told fucking Richard Kingsmill from Triple J to get Hilltops on. But Reason was, I think, the plug for Hilltops joining up with Obese and kind of being the first choice of pushing really commercial hip-hop in Australia. And I think that was natural because, from what I understand, at the Culture of Kings gig, which was like the first time that all the good crews from around the country came to one spot, it was quite obvious, from what I've heard, I wasn't there, but Hilltop Hoods were the standout act. They were very well rehearsed. They had just really put that extra bit of effort in and that extra sacrifice to make sure they were well polished. And so as Obese Records founded in Melbourne, and, you know, it linked up with these guys, it was the perfect mix, just right around Triple J going, all right, we got to do Australian hip-hop, what should we do, you know? And boom, 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 nosebleed section, pow, you know, like it just, that's, you know, poof, like slam dunk, you know? And and then, you know, you had the whole Certified Wise crew that came with that. You had Crossbred Mongrels, Terra Firma, like, you know, it all was popping. Like, Adelaide, maybe it's a smaller population, you know.
Per capita, we got a lot.
And so, it seems to me that back in the day, it was like way more close-knit here compared to, like, let's say, Melbourne. When I first came to Adelaide in 2010, I quickly became aware of the shadow that was left by that wave of successful hip-hop. Like, the underground was very jaded and very like, fuck, where's ours? Because, you know, these guys from the city had made it so far, and in the hip-hop scene, especially when you want to succeed, you do need to move, you know what I mean? Like, you can't, like, it's a fucking hard scene to be successful in, you know what I mean? And so there was definitely a big gap between the underground scene and what was seen as the commercial side of hip-hop.
There wasn't a middle class.
Not so much, not really. And I'm lucky enough to kind of know both sides of it, you know, because coming up in Tassie, I'd support the Funkors when they came down to Tassie, you know, and kind of knew a lot of those guys, and it's all mutual friends and small. But as one side of Adelaide hip-hop got very successful and business smart and figured out how to turn it into a commercial product and a success and all that, the other side kind of, had a big chip on its shoulder, and that created a lot of infighting in the scene and just that sort of culture and attitude, you know. And yeah, like it's chopped and changed over the years, you know. And you know, in the last few years, like for example, when DJ Sanchez was putting up statuses saying Adelaide hip hop is dead, and that was a very interesting moment because he was kind of seen as the key figure in the scene over here. And you know, I didn't agree with him doing that stuff because I think
he's not very well regarded in Adelaide at the moment.
Yeah, I know, and you know, I've got no issue with Sanchez personally, and this is where you have to be careful in the culture, bro. You know, and I've copped the same shit.
Well, he also picked sides. Yeah. And you can't do that when you run a platform.
No.
When you run a platform, you really have to fucking...
be open.
Yeah, you have to be open and you got to put everyone on. Like, you can't fucking try and manipulate the market just to suit your fucking best interests.
100%.
You're fucking gatekeeping the culture that is based on not doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, no, I understand.
It's so fucking hypocritical.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's where I feel that platform made a mistake, and, you know, you can kind of see it in the outcome, you know what I mean? And, you know, from an outsider's perspective, like watching Indigo Merkaba kind of really like create a lot of hype, stir up a lot of stuff. And then, yeah, he was putting out good shit, but then, you know, he carried on quite a lot. And then I saw he was going in on Adelaide too. And it's fucking hard, man. Like, Australia's just got a lot of tall poppy syndrome, crab bucket mentality.
It's also just don't forget where you fucking come from.
Yeah, 100%.
Just like, you can be constructively criticize and give ideas, but I would never fucking badmouth Adelaide to anyone.
Yeah, well, like, Australia's biggest problem is badmouthing itself.
Yeah, I'd fucking love living in Australia.
And I'm fucking guilty for it as well, you know what I mean? Like, and that's, I think, leads back to a lot of convict mentality of just, it's a fucking shithole, you know, but...
We just love to be... We love... Australia's a very satirical, negative
100%.
Place.
A lot of put-down culture.
Yeah, we are. We're very satirical about everything, and we love giving shit to everything. Like, me and my mates, if an American sat next to us and listened to us talk to each other, they'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, man. And I think that has a deeper effect than we realise.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's...
We're trauma bonding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like... Yeah, it's bad in Tassie, man. It's real bad in Tassie. Like, you know, your mate loves you when he calls you a fucking prick. Like,
yeah.
But, yeah, it definitely has a deeper effect than we realise. And sometimes we're so normalised to it that, I feel sometimes that certain elements of manifestation don't work out because of that, you know?
Yeah, you need a real fucking soul. I'm very lucky. I've got a group of mates where we can give each other shit, but if it really like boils down to it, we can like talk to each other or pull each other's heads in on certain things.
Yeah.
Like if one of my mates is being a dickhead, you can say, "Well, you're being a fucking idiot right now. You're pissing everyone off."
Yeah, for sure.
And they'll just take it in straight away.
Yeah.
Like we don't let shit linger.
Yeah.
There's no real bitching in our friend group.
That's good to hear.
Like we're all very similar people.
Yeah.
And like genuinely happy to see another one do well.
Yeah,
which is so rare for some reason. Like a lot of people just don't want other cunts to do well at anything.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, man. Especially if the bonds lie in the basis of ego, you know, that's where the rules of power, that whole like you know, yeah, it's easier to be in second place, you know what I mean? Like somebody might, you know, support you so long as you're there, and then you do better than them. You know, it's a hard one. It's a very hard one in the way that, that's like I was very blessed to have a lot of perspective from American culture because they definitely, that's my buddy and he's killing it. Yeah, you know. Whereas Australia, and I've been guilty of it, is like
fuck that cunt.
I didn't hear from him in a while.
I still find myself doing like I'm still fucking learning, but I still will find myself like just hating on something I see on Instagram because they're doing heaps better than me. Yeah. But I'll do it subconsciously.
Yeah.
And I won't like, I'm not the type to ever fucking comment on anything or fucking put anything negative out there. But in my head, I'm like, he does not deserve these fucking views. Or why is this Gronk getting this attention? But it's just, you can't. A lot of the thing about the internet is a lot of people are famous that really shouldn't be. But you can't hate them for being famous.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Everyone's got a market, and what I like, the next person might not like at all. You know, so you you can't expect everyone to have your taste in everything.
100%. And the concept of fame is so interesting. Like, you know, where I grew up, like, if you wanted to be famous, you just had to fucking punch on with everyone. You know what I mean? Like, the most person that got talked about was the person that fought the most.
Chopper Reid.
You know, yeah.
Chopper Reid.
Well, maybe he talked the most. You know what I mean?
The
Like,
most famous person from Tasmania, probably.
Yeah. He
Apparently,
definitely
his son, when Dundee was on the podcast, he was telling me that his son's fucking really gunning for he's trying to walk in his footsteps.
Yeah, bless Charlie.
Charlie, is it?
Yeah,
Charlie Reid.
Yeah, I've known Charlie since he was a kid, man. And, you know, he's a good kid. And I remember, like, I met him when he was a young lad hanging out in the street, you know, and he'd cop a lot of shit for his dad being Chopper, you know, and people, and his dad was passed, like, when I met him, he'd passed away maybe 4 or 5 years before. And, yeah, so many people just like, your dad's this, your dad's that, blah, 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 you know, like, as you said, the most famous person from Tassie, like, when Dunners got to Canada, they're like, you know Chopper? Like, you know, it's crazy, man.
He was built for podcast, Chopper. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened now if he was in the podcast era of the world. 100%. He was built. He was made for podcasts.
Yeah, but yeah, I really feel for Charlie, man.
It would be hard for people judging you on your father's sins.
Oh, 100%.
But you're not saying that, like, I don't know if that can be interpreted in a bad way, but fucking...
Just the shit he had to go through, bro.
Yeah.
Like, even like when they fucking made that Underbelly Chopper series, and they're like recreating sex scenes with Chopper and Charlie's mum, and it's on TV.
And he's got to fucking hear about it or get his mates probably sending it to him.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, and it's shit like that you don't really think about. Like, that'd be really intense to go through as a fucking teenager.
Well, you've already put this poor kid in a box. He can't be anything other than what you're telling him he's going to be now. So you're limiting his fucking opportunity just straight out the gate.
Yeah.
Is that his only child?
I'm not 100% sure, but I found out that I'm actually Charlie's sixth cousin through my American side, bro.
Really?
So I went on my ancestry journey, and turns out that, yeah, Charlie's mum is descended from a convict that's from a small town in England, and that convict's first cousin migrated to New York in 1820, and she's my fifth great-grandmother on my father's side.
How far back in your ancestry did you get?
I went... On one line, I managed to get back like 33 generations.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it because where my parents are from in Cyprus, they didn't keep a birth certificate, like birth records in their village.
Yeah.
So mine just stops.
Yeah,
like,
true.
But I had a customer at my business. She would always come in. Her name was Heather. She was an old lady. She was like, late 60s.
Yeah.
And her passion and her obsession was her ancestry.
That's
but
me all over,
she
bro.
was on all of them, bro.
Yeah.
She traced her family back to like the 1400s.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's taken me 40 years to do
100%.
this.
Well, I'm so blessed because, like, yeah, my father's American, and I grew up pretty disconnected from him. But my grandmother in America, she spent about 30, 40 years.
See, that's the thing.
She traveled to England, like, had, all on paper and everything. And then when she passed away, my dad in America really put a lot of it online. And then after I served 2019 in prison, me and my dad reconnected. And a big part of our bonding was like...
Through Ancestry.
Figuring out Ancestry. But then, yeah, we started doing it together, and that inspired me to go do all the different ancestry on my mum's side. And I've had such a profound journey in so many ways.
You find out a lot about, like, the thing with Ancestry, you got to kind of be lucky because you do need an older relative to have started it for you.
Yeah.
Like, it really helps.
Yeah.
And did you find anything, like, do you have, like, a count in there, or like a fucking...
Have a what?
Like a higher born family member? Did you come from higher born...
Yeah, one line connects to the royal family, man.
Everyone's would, eh?
Yeah, well, if you study ancestry, especially with fucking white people, who are actually a minority in the grand scale of humanity, you're looking at like 6 common ancestors after 30 generations for pretty much everyone.
That's wild, isn't it? And do you know what's even wilder? Have you ever been like really, really high and thought, we all have to stem from like 2 things.
Strap yourself in, bro. You ready?
It's fucking like 2 things where like literally everyone started from like just 2.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like, it's a spiritual thing, bro. The more I did my ancestry, the more that, Yeah, I was guided in so many ways. Like, I've come across distant cousins all around the country. After, like, I've learnt a specific thing in my ancestry here, and then all of a sudden, the more I talk about it as I travelled, the more it drew me exactly where I needed to be to get perspective on it.
Yeah.
You know, so like, for example, I came across a distant cousin in Darwin that was descended through one of my ancestors in Tassie, and that part of the family migrated up there like 1930, and then all of a sudden, I was able to gain more and more perspective on humanity. And the fact is, bro, we're all cousins, you know, like, just depends how many generations you can get back and figure out. And fuck, man, I got, like, through an American line, managed to get, back to the royal family. And then, I realised that most American politicians are descended from the royal family. So I did all the maths and, like, added it all up. And pretty much, so, like, Trump's my 26th cousin. So...
You've legit figured that out.
Yeah, 100%. So, but, you know, once again, like, a common ancestor 26 generations ago is like a common ancestor of most people, because as time goes on, bloodlines die out, and it's like the most dominant ones that last over, you know. And so, man, like, I was able to pretty much connect all my ancestry back through the entire foundations of America. I'm descended from a man called Elkanah Young, and he was one of the 5 people that ever admitted to being a part of the Boston Tea Party. So the Boston Tea Party was where the Massachusetts Bay Colony had enough of England selling them British Indian tea, sold it at an overprice, and the colony was like, fuck these dogs, we're going to fucking turn on them. So they jumped on one of the British English ships in the Boston Harbour and tipped 342 chests of tea into the harbour and turned it all brown. And that was what kicked off the whole American Independence War.
No shit.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, so that was when, like, everything just went boom. You know what I mean? And America became America. You know, one of my most famous relative that I share the last name with, his name was Horace Greeley. And he's my 5th cousin, 5 times removed. So we have a mutual ancestor 10 generations back called Joseph Greeley. And Horace started the New York Tribune, which was like the first newspaper in New York, early 1800s. He also founded the Republican Party with Abraham Lincoln. A bunch of stuff like that. But then Horace and Lincoln had beef because Horace was like a staunch abolitionist and he was for ending slavery. And Lincoln once sent him a letter saying, hey, I want to end slavery because of the union. It's all about free labour. You know, they didn't want more free labour so they could make more money in regards to building the economy, you know. And then Horace went, fucking, oh yeah, you don't care about the slaves. And he put that letter into his newspaper. And so the Republican Party turned on him. They kicked him out. Horace ended up, he was friends with a guy called Frederick Douglass, who was the first American slave to escape and write a book about the experience. And when he released his book, he had to leave America and go hide in Scotland. And I was able to find a letter that was sent from Frederick Douglass in Glasgow in Scotland to my 5th cousin 5 times removed in New York, thanking him for his support, because he used to take his letters from Scotland, this escaped slave, and put them in his newspapers and then send them down to the Confederate States to try and get the word out that you can escape. You know, and so all the Confederate States used to try and burn his horse carts that were getting sent down to the South to stop this word of anti-slavery reaching the plantations, you know.
It's so crazy that slavery was only like 4 people ago.
Exactly, bro.
It's fucking wild, dude.
I think that's the biggest issue in Australia is that, like, I was able to find out in one of my Tasmanian lines that I'm descended from a woman called Anne Wiggins, who apparently was the first white person born in Tasmania in 1804, and she's my 4th great-grandmother, so she's my great-grandmother's great-grandmother.
There's 4 people.
Yeah. That's two lifetimes ago. And she was born in 1804, so my mother's father's line was in Tasmania for the whole history of down there, and I'm still understanding certain aspects of, like, my grandfather's trauma that affected my mum and her sisters and how it's trickled down, and he's, you know, led back to the chaos of how Tasmania was founded and Van Diemen's Land, you know. So.
Tasmania, I'm not heaps familiar, so I grew up in like a pretty Greek household. My family's like, when they're not from here. Like, they moved here due to war in
What's
the 70s.
What's your last name, bro?
Christodoulou.
Sweet.
But mother's maiden name's Harpus, and so they moved in the 70s because of the war.
Yeah.
So I'm first generation Australian. So I never really grew up hearing about like Aboriginal history or Australian history much. So I'm not heaps familiar with it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I heard Tasmania was one of the more ruthless states.
It definitely was, and the isolation is a big reason for that. It was the island, you know.
I hear there isn't a huge indigenous population there now due to it. Yeah.
So that's a very, very big question to ask to explain. But so the Tasmanian, so the frontier wars in Tasmania were definitely probably the most horrific in Australian history. The first 50 years, it was absolute fucking chaos. Some of the worst crimes in humanity, you know. And in I think it was 1867, a woman called Truganini died. And when Truganini died, the Tasmanian government tried to say there's none left. You know what I mean? But a woman called Fanny Cochrane Smith, who was mates with Truganini, she was like, I'm still here. And she actually got given, I think, 300 acres of land. That was the first time land had actually ever been given back to an Indigenous person officially in Australian history.
In the 1800s.
In the 1800s. And Fanny Cochrane Smith was also the only, I guess, Tasmanian Indigenous person that was recorded speaking any language on a gramophone, I think in 1903. And they found that record, I think in the 60s, or maybe the 50s in the museum. It'd just been in a fucking shelf because no one actually realised how important it was. But even though that lie was spread and it was taught in Australian schools that there are no Tasmanian Indigenous people, there were many descendants that managed to survive the war. There's a island off the northeast coast, or there's a few islands off the northeast coast. Flinders Island is where, so there was a massive war going on. And then towards the end of it, there was a white guy called George Augustus Robinson, and he linked up with Truganini, and they travelled round and tried to get the last of the mob together. And they made a deal with Governor George Arthur to go over onto the little island, and they were promised they'd get some land back. You know, never fucking happened. But they went over to Flinders Island, which is also known as Wibelina, and that was, I guess, the first mission in the country. That island. But after a short amount of time, a lot of the mob on the island got sick. They'd given them blankets with smallpox, very common thing in colonisation, you know. And
they did that to the Native Americans as well.
Yeah, same with the Māoris, you know.
The Native Americans, surprisingly, most of them died due to disease.
Yeah, and same here, man.
They weren't used to the disease that the Western, or the invaders or colonisers bring with them. So, I'm pretty sure most of the Native Americans died from just diseases that they weren't accustomed to, and they got given sheets and stuff with smallpox on them, just infectious diseases.
100%, man. Yeah, there was actually, before my ancestors came to Tasmania, there was another contact where I'm not sure if they were Dutch, but they came down to Tassie as well, and they had a peaceful meeting with the mob, and they cruised off. But they shook hands and gave them bacteria, and that wiped out that whole mob. You know what I mean? And that was before the English even got there and founded Hobart, and then Van Diemen's Land, and then Tasmania. You know, so yeah, it's all it's crazy, man.
Did you do the spit test to find out?
Yeah, I ended up doing that.
What did you get?
What did I get?
What was your results of your lineage?
Mostly Scottish.
Mostly Scottish.
Yeah, mostly Scottish.
I got dicked with that.
Yeah.
It's
based off the records they have.
I was expecting just something, but I got pretty much, I got 99% Cypriot, which is where my parents are from, and I got 1% Levianth, so it's a fucking Middle Eastern kind of thing, I believe. But yeah, I was just straight up purebred.
Yeah,
I was
sure.
just nothing.
Well, man, it's how far you can take it back. For example, I'm on my little graph. 52% Scottish. But if you actually look into the history of Scotland, it was colonised by Greece 6,000 years ago. So if you have full Scottish heritage, you actually have 6% Greek heritage.
Yeah, well,
so how's that? And they're all ginger, you know what I mean?
I definitely...
The opposite,
interesting you say ginger, because there's heaps of ginger Greeks. Like, my beard in the sun is red.
That's
like
interesting.
straight up red. But I imagine
That's interesting.
my deep ancestors would have been like some form of Ottoman Empire, because the Ottoman Empire just fucking rolled through all of that country.
Yeah.
So that would have been like probably a big part of where my ancestors were from.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. It's so interesting. That's why it's so, in this world and this day and age of identity politics, of using fucking, you know, the words of colours to describe people, you know what I mean? It's even the word Greek or Scottish, or, you know, like, it's all just, you can just keep going back, man. And that's why I kind of like had to get to a point of finding God and that oneness. And it's all like, as you said, you get high and you think, fuck, we're all cousins. But we all are just one. The further you can go back, you can see how humans migrated. And if you get it all back to Africa, you know what I mean? Like, the Native Americans apparently came across here from China over the, you know, and it just never stops.
So have you ever dived heaps into like Genghis Khan?
I actually haven't.
Dude.
No, I've gone...
Dude.
Like, Asian culture is probably like one of the least ones I've really gone deep in.
I'm gonna butcher this, but I know this is as a fact. You can trace back his reign because he changed the carbon footprint of the Earth when he fucking took over, because he killed like fucking tens of millions of people. But he was the first person to put women in positions of power.
Interesting.
Because he knew that women were better at ruling. Men were better at conquering, but terrible rulers.
Yeah.
And women were generally better at ruling a city.
It's very true.
And
That's very true, man.
he
Up the matriarch, bros.
I think you could trace back like something wild. I'm just gonna say a number, but it's something ridiculous. Like 40% of people can trace their lineage directly back to Genghis Khan, because he had that many children.
Yeah.
He had thousands of kids.
Yeah. It's the same with a lot of the white people's ancestors is William the Conqueror, and I could figure out I'm descended from him. I think he's my 33rd great-grandfather, and he was the first Duke of Normandy, the first Viking to come in and take over England, and become the king. And that's how Vikings got into the English line. And
It'd be so funny, like, just to look at your history and be like, just see all these amazing people, and then just go up and see someone really horrific, and you just, oh no.
no, but that's the thing, bro. We all got some horrific ancestors.
Oh fuck, Hitler.
If you're alive today, man, you were a product of thousands and thousands of years of murder, rape, slavery, oppression.
That's just how it was, man.
It's just we're creatures, man. We are like awakened conscious to our own behavior more than ever, I think. But
it's because of the internet. We see it now.
That too.
Like in the 50s and 40s, 50s and 60s, you didn't see atrocities. They were still happening. You just didn't see it on Instagram.
Yeah, well, it depends where you were in the world, I guess.
But unless you were there.
Yeah.
Like, we don't. We'll never be able to truly grasp the Holocaust.
Oh, of
ever.
course.
Like, we can read about it, but we didn't live it. Like, it's very different to, like, the war in Gaza now. I can fucking go on Twitter now.
Oh, yeah.
And they're wearing fucking GoPros, bro. Like, in Ukraine, I'm obsessed with watching fucking these GoPro things of these soldiers. They're just strapping GoPros to their head, and you can see it. And it's like, it's terrifying. It's terrible, but it's like, I can see it. Whereas the Holocaust, we just read about it. We didn't live it. So we will never actually understand the true atrocity and the true fucking clusterfuck that was that whole war.
Well, man, like Tasmania, bro. They when they invented the word genocide, they used what happened in Tasmania as an example. Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. And just to quickly, I just want to tie that off. So there is a Tasmanian Indigenous community. It took them, I guess, nearly 100 years, the community, to then reprove their existence. A lot of the mob built the Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre, and bit by bit they used people to help recreate the language, and they've been building the culture back more and more, and it comes with a lot of creases that need to be ironed out. There's so much, it's really hard because the culture down there was so decimated, and I really learnt more about the culture in Tassie from my time up in Darwin, because Darwin's the least colonised part of Australia. And being in the community up there really helped me understand the depths of the colonisation growing up in Tasmania and how deeply entrenched it is in the mind state of the colonialism.
They're the two states I've never been to.
Yeah,
Darwin and Hobart, and they're the two. I actually really, really, really want to go to Tassie. That's just for the scenic, just to see it, because apparently it is.
Oh, the country
it's
is
like
so
a
special.
It's like a different world almost.
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people compare it to New Zealand. The west side of Tassie is connected still to its original Gondwana continent, so you're ancient country. You know what I mean? Like the lakes on the west side are just asteroid craters. And when you get up on the right mountains, you get perspective of it, and you can actually see thousands of years of history in the land just looking at it. It's a magical place, man. But there's a lot of healing that needs to be done down there as well. There's so many just pockets of darkness, man. It's very interesting traveling, and people are like, oh, Tassie's so beautiful, and it is. There's some beautiful people down there, and some really hard working and very genuine people. It's a very friendly place in a lot of ways, but there's still a lot of it's really hard to explain and put your finger on. But the more I kind of study history and also try and go on my own path of deconditioning my mind from the mind state I grew up in down there, the more I can understand it.
Do you feel like Melbourne is a better suit for you now in this point in time?
No, not really. I just think being close to the beach and bush is a better suit for me. I think it's all the colony, bro. And I just even because I've travelled Australia so much, and I really focus on the infrastructure. I really focus on the history. I can kind of see the patterns in it all, and Melbourne's another interesting one on its history and how it was built up and everything like that. But for me, I just really at this point I absorb so much, and I really struggle to forget stuff, and the blessing with being on the mission for knowledge, it can come with the curse of knowing what's really going on.
How is what's his name, the owner of Mona, received in Tasmania? What's his name?
His name's David Walsh.
David Walsh. How is he received over there?
Just depends on what side of the bankroll you're on, really.
Yeah. I've heard Mona's fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
I've seen videos and shit of it, but apparently it is very impressive.
Oh yeah, if that's your thing. You know, it's it's he has brought a lot of he's built up, he's I guess improved the economy, he's brought a lot of tourism to Tassie. A lot of people love it, He's done a lot of questionable stuff in his festivals, a lot of very satanic, ritualistic sort of stuff. He's got a fucking sign where he parks his car that says God.
That's a wild move.
Yeah. People try to say that he doesn't actually care. He's just letting everyone get pissed off, and it is what it is. But I've had times where I've performed at Mona, I've done gigs there, but at the same time I've seen things that they've chosen to do that I really disagree with, and I've seen it affect the community in a really negative way. I was actually in a relationship with a Tasmanian Indigenous woman when Mona decided to ask the Aboriginal community for their blood so they could soak the English flag in it and put it on display.
That's a fucking wild move, man.
That's a wild move, and it fucking backfired on them, man.
That's a fucking really bold move.
Yeah, bro. That was fucking too bold.
That's trying to be... That's just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
really.
and it was some international artist that...
right.
He was always about trying to fucking play on, he wanted to do it. He did a Holocaust exhibition as well, and he's like, you know what I mean? All right, let's fucking I don't know. Mona put a big sign up in Tassie. This is how I can explain. Tassie's a beautiful place, but there's underlying shit, right? Mona put up a big sign in the airport that said "Welcome to Hell." So when you walked off the plane in Tassie, it said "Welcome to Hell." And within a week, the entire community was so triggered by it, it was taken down. Because there's an element down there that is still hellish for some people, and don't get me wrong, the wealthy and successful are kicking ass and putting on cool fucking festivals, and all the hipsters
nice
from Melbourne
restaurants.
come down and
Yeah.
they're like, "Ooh, the winter feast," and all that happens. But there's a side of Tassie that is fucking suffering, man. They don't benefit off any of this shit. Like
It's trying to fucking feed their kids.
yeah, it'll get
Fucking-
by, and it's an interesting one, bro. So, some people love Mona. As I said, he's created a lot of jobs. He's created a lot of interesting stuff that's happened. They support a lot of artists. There's lots of things like that. But, I definitely...
There's a weird undertone to it.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with a lot of the undertone that they push and the narrative that they do. And that comes from my own personal experiences, I guess, But some people might think I'm just a hater.
If you don't mind, I just really need to go to the bathroom, so
go
I'm just
for it,
going to
bro.
pause it for a
Sweet.
moment.
To it.
We are back. Sorry, I fucking almost shit my pants.
Hey!
It was a wild one there. I was fucking clinging on for dear life. I was like, fuck, he's on a roll too. He's dropping fucking heat.
Oh, bro, yeah, I started fucking... the tism just started flowing,
The
bro.
tism was flowing.
Yeah,
So
man.
you have a very specific kind of tism. You got very
Yeah.
you retain and recite information impeccably.
Thank you, bro.
Which I retain information really well.
Yeah.
But I think I have severe ADHD
Yep.
because I can't, I can bring it up, but I can never recite it.
Interesting.
I'm not good at reciting what I know.
Yeah. I think through a lot of my, growing up, I traveled a lot, between Tasmania and America, and all by myself, when I was a teenager, and, yeah, had to do some big missions, man, and, just got used to... Yeah, I think with my tism and analysing who I am now, because I only really started to figure this out in the last few years of my life. I felt very alienated all the time. I always feel very alienated and very different. And yeah, my mate Lewis Spears actually had an intervention with me, and he was like, "I think you're autistic," and he had a bunch of books and all this sort of stuff, and came to understand that. But I guess we're all programmed, and we learn programming in
Shout out
different
to
ways.
Lewis
and-
Spears. Very funny motherfucker.
Yeah, he's the man, bro.
Very funny man.
Yeah, man. He just slam dunked Ray Gun.
Yo,
Yeah.
bro, I'm loving his new style of content where he just rips people on an Instagram reel, but he's very factual about it, and he's very well planned.
Yeah, man.
It's very well executed.
He's a tism king as well,
He's
man.
very, very fucking funny, man.
He is, bro. And he's a very hard worker.
If he's ever in Adelaide,
Yeah,
I'd love to have on more comedians.
for sure, man.
I was saying this to Manners the other day. Shout out to Manners Hill. I was saying this to Manners the other day. I'm always catching people on their sobriety journey.
Yeah.
Now it's sobriety is a real I wouldn't say in thing, but it is. I think everyone's just getting older.
Yeah, 100%.
But
I mean,
I would have loved to have caught some of these people almost in their previous state and then their now state.
Yeah.
A 360 podcast 10 years ago would be very different to a 360 podcast now.
Oh, 100%.
Do you know what I'm? Both
Yeah.
very good podcasts, but very different.
yeah,
Very different people.
very different. I think, man, there's so many people in my generation that are waking up to God and sobriety and all these different things. And I think it comes through us seeing a bit of the end goal of the chaos of humanity, And when you're an influential person, you really realise how impactful things are. If you're able to do something that is a foundation in culture, for example, the rap battle, things like that affected how the culture grew and changed, and that affects people's lives in different ways, And I think if you pay enough attention as you go through that, you start to really realise the accountability and the responsibility that you have for what you put out to the universe, And I think it's very interesting, fame, when you're young and you think you want it and all these sorts of things once again, and then, you realise, the double-sided sort of edge to it all, and that's where I feel that, and the human ego, man, is a ceiling effect, You can only climb so high. I know, 360 was probably one of the first individuals in Australian hip-hop to really make bank, But if you watch how his life went you know, after that big success, it went, you know, took a real downward turn, and he had a really hard time. And I saw a snippet of a podcast he did, and he was saying, you know, money doesn't make you happy. And I know lots of people that are very rich or very wealthy in different ways. And yeah, one thing I've learnt in my journey, bro, is, you know, it's all perspective, and it doesn't matter how high you climb, we're all still here at the end of the day. And that's the most important thing, I think. And that's where like God comes in, because yeah, you can become the richest person on earth, you can do all the things, but if you don't keep that sense of humility and you allow the human ego to take completely control, fucking that's how Diddy ended up as Diddy, because it was never good enough, and that ceiling effect ended up until he was a serious fucking predator. You know what I mean? And
fucking, we were actually talking. Funny you mentioned that. We were talking in the car, and we were talking about old like good kung fu and good old school movies, and how like the kind of the kung fu genre now is. I don't know if it's still going. I just don't outsource it, maybe. But the good old like Bruce Lee, Jet Li, old school Jackie Chan, like Tony Jaa movies, like they just were so fucking good.
They were.
And then we got on to like Romeo Must Die, how you bought the DVD and you were watching it, and you were like, that movie hits so different now because of the situation with him and Aaliyah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the 90s in general hits a bit different now, doesn't it?
Oh, you got fucking... As Bill Cosby kicked it off.
Oh, man. Woodstock 99. That was a crazy fucking... That was the end of the 90s. And if you look at that music festival, it was one of the most toxic fucking moments in Western culture.
Was that the one Limp Bizkit performed at?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it just ended up in fucking...
In
people
shambles.
died. Like,
people were getting raped everywhere.
Yeah, it was fucking chaos.
Yeah.
Any woman that got on the stage was just heckled by thousands of men going, show us your tits, while they were holding their red cups full of beer. It was, you know, fucking American Pie, college American culture of just like deep objectification of women, and just like, yeah, that narrative, man. And then, yeah, you look at like hip hop and, you know, what fucking Diddy was doing, what fucking all of them were doing, what Jay-Z's probably doing, you know. I get so many people questioning shit, but I just know on my journey of like success and knowing other people that, yeah, try to fill that void with other things other than, you know, or just from the, you know, money, sex, power, all these things. It's just a never-ending fucking...
Did you used to dabble... Are you much of like a podcast listener?
Yeah, the podcasts really helped me a lot. When Joe Rogan really started like kicking off and getting lots of his comedian mates on, and
dude, there's some of the, especially if you're in like I went through this phase or transition where I really needed to stop partying.
Yeah.
And I needed like something to do, and my avenue was like games. I'll just fucking stay home, I'll save, and I'll just play games. That's all I'll do. Yeah. And I fucking loved it. It's like that's what I needed to do, just to not go out on a Friday, because my Friday, or if I went out on a Thursday, the Thursday would end on Monday.
Yeah.
And then fucking, because the second, like that, there's a famous clip about, but with Ben Cousins, I love the video of it. He's like, you can't stop on Thursday because Friday's better than the Thursday, and then the Saturday's even better than the Friday, and then the Sun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then fucking, so I just played games, and then I fucking started smashing podcasts.
Yeah.
And just having like, it's like a anxiety reliever. Like I would have my earpod in all day, every day, or a headphone in, and I would just go about my day, but I'd always have a voice. It's like a little, just a comforter, almost.
100%. Well, we're so overstimulated in this era of substances, and I guess that's like, when we go out in the town, and like growing up in Hobart, there's a massive binging culture. Like it was a whaling town, you know. At one point in Hobart, there was like 100 pubs on every block, you know, crazy, and that binging culture was still pretty heavy. I guess it's still in some ways pretty heavy, you know. But I grew up. Same, man. You know, you'd party Wednesday night, you maybe pull up Friday a little bit, go again Friday night, till Monday, pull up, and then Wednesday was again. You know, and we had like pubs in Hobart that would do steins of beer for $5 each.
Bring it back.
Yeah, no, don't. I don't want to get arrested. You know what I mean? Like, I got, fuck, man, so many blackout drunk nights. There was no RSA, you know what I mean? Just proper. And they'd start at 5 p.m. So you go down there and start drinking Steins for $5 each at 5 p.m, man. By the time it's 7:30, you're blackout. And Hobart, like, is such a place that you can just black out, and it's pretty safe.
You can navigate. I mean? Navigate.
You'd wake up in a different suburb, get up. Where's the mountain? Oh, I'm in fucking Bridgewater. You know, like, it was a interesting spot to grow up in. But yeah, it's that stimulants, man. And then to get away from substance abuse, we need to be stimulated. Podcasts.
And to have that constant, and it's also like what I was getting at before is like, did you ever dabble in the dark arts of Alex Jones?
Yeah, straight up.
I used to I actually had to stop listening because it started making me real cynical about just like everyday things. Yeah, man.
I had an uncle in America that was like a big fan of Alex Jones, and
I won't defend him on some of the shit he says because some's pretty fucking wild and he has had some heinous moments of like saying some wrong shit about the wrong things.
Yeah.
But he was talking about Epstein fucking 5 years before it even came out.
Oh, yeah, man.
He was founded Bohemian Grove. He made a documentary on the Bohemian Grove fucking... Yeah. No one knew about it.
Oh, 100%, man. And, you know, like, Australia is very similar to America when it comes to, like, elite gentlemen clubs. You know, Adelaide, there's quite a lot. Tasmania, there's heaps.
There's one of the biggest ones, or most, like, exclusive ones in Melbourne, I believe. I can't remember the name.
It's all connected, bro. Like, if you follow the breadcrumbs back, like, like, the gentlemen's club in Hobart is called the Athenaeum Club, right? That was founded late 1800s. The direct chapter of the Athenaeum Club, and I know there's one in Adelaide. I've seen its logo around. But it was in London, and Jimmy Savile was the president of the London.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, man, you can connect the dots very quickly between Masonic temples, Athenaeum clubs, the early Melbourne club, the Tasmanian club. Adelaide has got its own fucking shit, you know what I mean? Heaps of it. Like, especially because of the elitism that was here from from the colonial periods, you know, all that sort of stuff. And you can trace the breadcrumbs from Tassie to Epstein very quickly, you know, like through that direct fucking 6 degrees of separation. Like, you know, Jimmy Savile had access to the Queen, but, you know, individual.
He's a real putrid motherfucker.
He was the fucking Diddy of the 80s.
He was I'd even fucking go as far to say worse. I only just recently seen that documentary.
I reckon in some ways Diddy had more power and more control. Different culture, different time, different era, but, you know, places in the world. But I'd say, fucking Diddy was definitely... I think we're yet to find out the depths of that one.
We never will.
Yeah, you know, when Jimmy Savile died is when we kind of started to see the impact of that. But yeah, through the Anglican Church, which is the Church of England, and, you know, the most dominant church in Australia, and most of the pedophile rings in Australia you can trace back from the diocese of the Anglican Church in Australia, all connected across the country. And, you know, I know for a fact that the head of the Anglican Church in Australia was meeting up with George Pell and the Catholic side, because at the end of the day, it didn't matter what side they were when they were all fucking pedos, you know.
That's one thing with religion. See, I'm not a religious man. Like, but I'm not one of those, like, people that are, like, whatever makes you a better person.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck if you believe in... like a bowl of spaghetti runs the whole universe. As long as it makes you less of a cunt.
100%.
Like, believe whatever you want. But one thing I really have a stripe with religion is the really tossed to the side underlying pedophilia and rape that goes on in some of these fucking churches that are just swept under the rug. And it's not the religion, it's the church. But it's a mouthpiece for the religion. So it gives it a bad look.
Yeah, 100%, man. I was abused through the church when I was a kid. So for me to come back and find God was like a massive thing to overcome. And the irony was, man, like once I actually opened up about the abuse that I went through, God literally put me in a place to see the same man that fucking abused me, bro. I hadn't seen him in a long time. Very long time. And then all of a sudden I opened up about it and started forgiving him internally. And then a few weeks later, I'm walking down the street in Hobart, and I see the same man that abused me, bro. And I had to look at him and walk away, bro. And that's how I got my power back. So I can understand completely. I lived it in a perspective where I hated church, I hated religion, I hated all this sort of stuff. But once again, man, like, all of that shit exists in the kingdom of man. You know, a lot of religion is men trying to tell you what God is, you know. And, yeah, that's, you know, there's many, like, I've heard that the pedos got into the church system during the Black Plague. So when the Black Plague was happening, all the priests were dying because they were praying for the people that had the plague, and then they got the plague too. So that was all of a sudden they needed more priests, and then the pedos started getting into the church because they weren't doing a screening process, and that's where the pedophile culture kind of started in that. Yeah, I think, you know, in a culture where, in anything, if you deny sexual empowerment in a healthy way, it ends up twisting, you know, and I think that's a big reason behind pedophilia in the church, because they're strictly following these guidelines, and a priest can't have a wife and can't have sex, and then all of a sudden they become fucking pedos.
I was going to say, because in like Orthodox, or to my knowledge, Orthodox priests can get married and have children. Yeah. So it's not very prominent in Orthodox churches. It's very common in like Catholic anti-sexual sort of cultures. Celibate.
Yeah, celibate cultures. Yeah, that's it.
It's just, yeah, it's one of those things.
It's fucked up, bro.
It's the most.
But you know what I've learnt really, like, in this time, that there's just as many pedos in police, government, the church. At the moment, there's a massive royal commissioning happening. I know for a fact there's a lot of top coppers from different parts of the country that have all been necking themselves because what happened in the 90s is all coming to the surface. You know, I see it as a power issue. It's, you know, a lot of people, yeah, and like when some people get too crazy down the fucking path with religion and God, that can lead to power issues as well, you know, and I was on the recipient of that, like, so, yeah, it's such an interesting fucking thing, man, and humans, you know, it's all environmental, a lot of that shit, like, there's different cultures around the world where, you know, pedophilia is acceptable, and I'm not fucking defending it in any way, but I've learnt on my journey, I've fucking, because of the abuse that I went through, I used to just like focus on pedos in the world, and I'd waste so much of my time being like, there's fucking pedophiles here, there's pedophiles here, pedophiles, they run this, they run that. And then I went to jail, and the fucking judge that fucking sent me to jail is mates with the same fucking cunt that abused me. And then I'm in jail with a bunch of fucking criminals who are all products of abuse from going up in boys' homes that are owned by the same church, the same networks of the same people, you know what I mean? And I was really just able to kind of understand. And then as well, I had to fucking see pedos in jail because in Tassie, they don't have a segregation fucking
Really?
thing. Yeah.
So in
minimum, pedos work in the cereal room.
They don't have like a boneyard or anything.
They do it's different sections. So like minimum, they have their own division, but they're still allowed to walk around the same oval. I remember one day minimum, there was a pedo doing laps and all the lads were just throwing fucking vortexes at him, you know what I mean? And then the guys came out like, stop it. And like when you'd walk into work in the prison kitchen, you go by the cereal room, which is all the pedos. And I tell you what, looking in a room and seeing like 16 fucking pedos all pouring cereal into a fucking little bags up for the prison. It's a creepy look, man. Fucking cereal dealing pedos, you know? Like, you know, you see a video clip and there's like chicks with masks on with their tits out, like bagging up coke. There's just like 16 pedos in a Tasmanian prison bagging up cereal. Dead set. But you know, and I realized in that time, I was like, fuck, man, this is a human condition, you know, like that fucking people are repeating, you know? And I knew if I fucking held on to that same hypervigilance I had from getting abused and took it out on everyone there, I'd still be in jail with them now, you know? And I think that's what that was one of the steps on my healing journey of fucking finally accepting what I'd gone through, and then that led me to healing, you know? And now I can have these conversations and talk to you about this
without it
doesn't even like trigger me too much anymore where it used to, you know? It used to, yeah. I didn't even, like, honestly, I'd suppressed the memories for so long. I didn't even really remember it had happened, but I was still behaving in ways that were fueled from the anger and the trauma that was still deep inside me. So it wasn't until I really fucking opened those doors in my brain and walked through them that I could then undo all of that and be okay to talk about it without it fucking, triggering me as much.
If you don't mind me asking, I don't actually know the details of it. What were your charges? Why did you go to prison?
Grievous bodily harm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I broke a guy's jaw. His name's Ian, and that was in Hobart at a gig, and I'd had a bunch of charges over my early 20s of mainly assaults, mainly like punching on and out the town. I did have a gun charge because I was looking after a gun for a mate that was fucking doing a bunch of dodgy shit. And then I got into a fight out on the town. And then the cops raided my house looking for the T-shirt that I was wearing in the fight. And they found this gun. So I ended up with a gun charge. I copped that sweet. You know what I mean? And a few other things. So, yeah, when I broke this guy's jaw, they were like, you're going to jail now, And
how long was the stint?
I was all up a year.
That's not bad.
Yeah, no, I'm very grateful.
Probably
for my
good
time.
for you.
Well, actually, yeah, I kicked really well at the first. They sent me in. The heaps of people think I only did a couple months, and I did. I did a couple months, but then I got out for a week, and they appealed it, and I had to go back to court and then go back in.
So much worse.
Yeah, that's it. But it was all a blessing, bro. I definitely made the most of my time in there, and I made friends with a guy who was a well-known Tassie criminal, and. Yeah, we made heaps of plans on empowerment, and, he's been out 5 years straight now. He's got his daughter back. He started his own company. He's kicking goals. There was so many positive things that came from it. And then on top of that, I ended up running into the guy whose jaw I broke in Darwin, and he's from Cairns, and I broke his jaw in North Hobart in Tasmania. And I was up in Darwin, and a bunch of different things that I manifested all of a sudden came true and put me here, which meant that I ended up going to this gig, and then I saw the guy whose jaw I broke, and I walked in the beer garden at a venue called Busted Town right in the middle of Darwin, and there's Ian. And I just looked at him and he just looked at me, and we hugged, and we put it all behind us, and
that would have been a good feeling.
Yeah, it was so profound, man.
That would have been really nice.
And then I said to him, I was like, fuck, man, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry I fucking affected your life the way that I did. And he said to me, man, he goes, I'm sorry I sent you to jail. And I was like, bro, if I didn't go to jail, then this wouldn't have happened. And that was another time of my acceptance of God, bro, because I realized that everything does happen for a reason, and maybe that's just, justifying what I went through, but it's very interesting, bro. For me, and the understanding of God is finding ways to understand the gratitude for the hardest times, And when I was standing with Ian and we were talking about our lives since that moment where we clashed, and to where we were again, there was many blessings that came from the clash. You know what I mean? And I think that was where I just really started to accept that in some ways everything does happen for a reason if you choose to, do the work and put yourself out there that'll lead you to these points of understanding to gain that perspective.
Well, shout out to Ian.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ian.
Straight up.
You wrote an album in jail, yeah?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Yep. Dunner's helped me out, managed to get a PS2 in there. Birdbrain got the Beat CD made for me. And because you're not allowed to have burnt CDs in prison, so I picked the beats over the phone, Rob Shaker's beats. Birdbrain played them over the phone to me, and I picked a bunch of them, and then he got them sent over to what are they called? Disc Bank in Perth, like a CD printing place. And he got the CD properly printed up and then sent directly to the prison with the receipt so I could get it. So after about a month in there, I ended up with a PS2 and a Beat CD, and I could play it through my TV and fucking write raps in my notebook.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was a mission. But it was good, bro. It was sick. I have to try. I have to, you know what I mean? It was like going back in time a bit rather than just being able to write on my phone and do whatever, check a beat on YouTube, you know what I mean? It was back to the bare bones of being creative. And the album came out really good and led to so many blessings in other ways. And that was a big manifestation thing, man, because, I think it was July 1st. I got out January 2020, and I released my album July 1st, and it hit number 1 on all the iTunes charts. And yeah, just thought back to all those moments sitting inside, writing in my notepad, manifesting.
Would have felt like a movie.
Oh, bro, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a concert in jail. That was a movie moment, man.
Yeah, I heard on the search.
Yeah. That was a movie, bro.
How the fuck did you convince them to let you use the PA system in the yard? Was it pretty easy?
Wasn't too hard,
Was it
bro.
was it a pretty cruisy jail? You're in like a low security.
That was a minimum.
Yeah.
And minimum have a band room, so they had a PA available. And I just got a power extension cord and got a picnic table on the oval, which was just outside. Like, you go in and there's a gym and a band room. Like, the band room's just kind of like a sectioned off room inside the gym.
Yeah.
Very old jail, and that's where Chopper was, and all those books were written in the old jail, which is now the minimum of Risdon. And I did the concert, and I performed a song that was about one of my fans that got murdered. And yeah, literally as I'm performing it, I could see all the family members in prison of the guy that got murdered, and family members of
the murderer.
The murderer, yeah. And I performed this song, and the song was just about, why are we doing this shit? And I was real scared. I wasn't scared. I was nervous, I guess,
In case shit kicked off.
Well, yeah.
And
some of these families are, I guess, the most notorious families I grew up around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's the names that you heard of, and so yeah. But I once again going through all that, I realised that we are all human, man. And at the end of the day, especially in crime where there is like beef and there is a murder or something extreme like that, it affects so many different people in different ways. And it's an interesting one, man.
Would you say, what do you reckon of like, there's a massive surge of crime in youth in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and like not a lot of it, but some of it is to do with like the trap movement in Australia and the influence that like some of these certain artists are having on the youth, where these artists are in fucking very prolific gangs of their areas, and they're very postcode proud, and it's almost like it's much like gangster rap was glorifying a certain lifestyle, but I don't feel like now that it's made its way into Australia and these kids are at 15 are dressing up in a certain way and acting a certain way, even though they live in a fucking $1.7 million house in the suburbs. Like, do you feel like it's having a major... It's fucking getting wild out in some of these streets, and especially in Sydney. Yeah. Like, kids are carrying fucking knives everywhere.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think there's, external influence that is at fault for a lot of that. I think, at the core issue at the end of the day is young men lacking positive male guidance, and it comes back to the family unit at the end of the day. You know what I mean? It's the biggest issue with young men and disconnection to, society. It comes from the family unit, and whether they are kids that, like for me, man, like I grew up without my dad in a very isolated rural part in Australia. And one thing I noticed, in my time in Tassie is like how many fellas that grew up in Tassie identifying with Tupac. And that was really interesting. You know what I mean? That very separate cultures, very separate. But when these kids in Tassie that were growing up in traumatized environments, a lack of any good support, having to do crime to survive, when they heard Tupac with the limited amount of music that they had access to in the 90s in Tassie, that was the closest thing they could identify with. You know what I mean?
They make it relatable.
Well, they don't identify with Akadaka. They identify with this, and so then they take it on, and it becomes more a part of their identity. And for me, hip-hop was a massive part of that, and some of my violent behaviour was a massive part of that as well. I was a young man that grew up without my dad around, so me as a child was generally scared, like fucking, I grew up with just my mum and my sisters. I was the only male in the family, so I overcompensated with masculinity to protect myself and to protect my family. And then the energy I got from hip hop and that not only did it like give me like I'm so grateful that I focused on the craft of the culture more than just the ego, because I had mates that I grew up with that love rap more than I did, but they didn't end up rapping. They just ended up doing the thug life. You know what I mean? But for me, it was like the rap was more important. And I was so lucky to have opportunities to do rap when I was young, because I remember core times when I was with my mates that were going out to do crime, and I was like, nah, I've got a gig in Melbourne coming up. I can't come, you know? And yeah, when I got to jail, they were my old mates.
I'm not going to say that, like, my favourite fucking genre of rap is gangster rap. Like, I just like it.
Yeah,
and I actually like the best thing about, not the best thing, but gangster rap is way more impactful when the person rapping it is a legitimate fucking gangster.
100%.
Like, there's this kid that he's fucking dead now, but I've only just cottoned onto him because I don't listen to much new music. King Von.
Yeah.
King Von's music, he's not like the best rapper in the world.
Yeah.
His fucking flow's not that great, but what he raps about, you can actually tell that he's like, he's just fucking rapping about shit that's happened to him.
100%.
And I appreciate that.
That's interesting, bro. Yeah, I was listening. Have you ever listened to Charleston White?
Is that the old head from prison?
No, he's a community. Oh yeah, he spent time in jail, but he's a community activist.
Skinny African American.
Yeah,
he's also very fucking like his comedic timing. He's a very he doesn't mean to be funny, but he's very funny.
Yeah, and so he was like, you know, when King Von died, he was getting on podcast.
Fuck King Von. He's a fucking serial killer.
100%, bro. And that's the thing, like, fuck, man, I was in jail with a guy that he was a big Necro fan, and he ended up killing a bloke, shooting him in the head, chopping his head off, both arms and legs. Yeah, killed this guy and everything like that, right? And I was in jail with him while he was going through trial. And while it was happening, Necro in America got wind that one of his fans had listened to his song Dead Body Disposal and gone and killed this cunt and got caught for it. So Necro started bragging about it on Instagram. Yeah, but he mustn't have been a true fan. He got caught.
Jesus Christ.
All of a sudden, Jake, the guy who got murdered, his mum is on ABC like, that's my son. And then Necro backpedaled and deleted it, you know. And I guess that's like, it's all fun and games until it's close to home, you know what I mean? And for me, I grew up loving gangster rap too. But now I've been around and seen so much fucking trauma happen that I can directly link back to influence of gangster rap. I had another friend when I was 18. He was a big ICP fan, Dark Lotus, all this sort of stuff. He had schizophrenia, but he was always on medication. He was a great guy called Stavros Papadopoulos. And he was a good mate, used to come around and write raps, got off his meds, got on the gear. 6 months later, he's like, I want to see what it's like to kill a bitch. And him and another guy I grew up with went and kidnapped an Asian chick, raped and killed her and dumped her in a lake.
Jesus Christ.
And fucking Dundee went into Risdon prison to do a performance only like last year. And that same fella came up to him like, I'm working on my raps, bros, you know what I mean? And that shit happened when I was 18, you know, and he's still in there. But he's a great example of like, you know, his family ran a shop, you know, came from like a strong Greek family, you know, his older brother was called Dimmy, you know what I mean? Like, it's
just full fucking
and just
dance with the devil.
Literally, bro.
Full fucking immortal technique to
100%, man. And that Dance with the Devil song is very interesting because it's
a fantastic song.
Yeah,
it's such a have you heard this song?
It is
type song.
But I've had so many conversations with people that heard that song, and then their life went this way. You know what I mean? It like so many people that heard that song when they were young and influential. 3 years later, they're in the trap dancing with the devil. You know what I mean? That's a song that'll always stick with you. And so does Dancing with the Devil, man. You know what I mean? Like
it's fucking wild. Do you know?
No, but like in real life, you know what I mean? Like you dance with the devil and you fuck around with that shit, bro. It's it's so important. Like fuck, man. I've got so many significant moments of thinking like I should have gone this way and then went this way, and then all of a sudden there's a dead person. You know what I mean? And I've been around it quite a lot.
There's so many songs like Ill Mind of Hobson 5 is another one.
Was that where he was talking to the teenager?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's like even fucking Complete Jordan.
Yeah.
Jordan's the Complete Manners, when Complete came to Adelaide last, I had no idea who he was.
Yeah.
And I was scheduled to do a podcast with OMAC.
Yeah.
because Goobsy and Manners were like, you'd fucking love Omac. He's one of the boys.
Yeah.
He's just a fucking legend. So me and him got on it the night before, had a few drinks, did a podcast, and then Manners is like, do you want to fucking come to the hotel room with me, just help me around the city, and you can come backstage and shit for Complete? And I was like, okay, cool. I didn't really know who Complete was. Went to the hotel room. Hey, I'm Shell. How you going? So lucky I didn't know who he was, or I would have fucking fangirled, man.
Yeah.
And then I went to his show, never heard his music before. First time I've heard Bloodstained Nikes. First time I heard Jordan, Roses, Happy as Larry, like all of his new songs and his old. And I'm just sitting in the back, and I had a joint with this random dude that was next to me in the mosh pit, and he was just smoking. He gave me some, and I remember just being stoned as hearing Roses for the first time, and I was like, this dude's like one of the best musicians I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, bless, bro.
Dude, Complete might be one of the best artists I've ever seen in my life.
Good on you, bro. He is a very, very talented artist.
He's fucking bullshit, but I like how he's also doesn't take himself too seriously, and he does have those satirical songs like Dog the Boys. Yeah. That's just fun.
Oh, Shelley is a very humble person, man.
Very smart man.
I met him when he was 18. So, like, yeah.
Has he always...
he's always been very talented.
There's a thing with people like, I don't know, I can attribute it to fighters, but obviously not musicians because I don't know a lot of musicians. Yeah. I've never been in the aura or during the rise of a great outstanding musician. But with fighters, there's certain auras when someone's like really destined for something. You can definitely feel it. Has Complete always, and like Cursor, much like Cursor. Yeah. Do they have something different about them when you meet them?
Definitely, man. I'd say Cursor just had self-belief. That fella, he had his eye on the goal, and he knew he was going to get there. And he was the first one confident enough to say he was the fucking sickest.
Cursor's the sickest.
Man, not many people in Australia had the confidence or self-belief to really just go, me. You know what I mean?
The whole lad culture, not started, but he definitely like
commercialized
it. Like he's the original Eshe, man. Like he's the OG.
Yeah. It's very interesting because like all that culture of that comes from influences from low life culture in America. Rock and Nautica was a big thing over in America.
In New York.
New York and Thurston Howell III, and there was actually a rapper from Brisbane that did a collab. His name was Clinic, and he did a collab with Thurston Howell, and he was rapping about rack and polo in 2002.
That Thurston Howell was the one they made the doc on because he racked so much Ralph Lauren, they ended up doing like a fucking like a show with him, like a fashion show.
He's like the OG of that polo shit, and But yeah, I mean, a lot of guys in Sydney really took on that culture. It was the same thing was happening in New Zealand. A lot of the graph riders in New Zealand back in those days were all repping low life polo. It was, so it trickled down. You know what I mean? And a lot of like Sydney searchers like Enter, Schemo, Sky High, they were some of the first sort of guys that were really putting that culture into music and putting it out there, kind of precursor. And Cursor and Rates and all those guys grew up in the same era. And that was a part of their style, I remember, we, back in those days, like, if you were at the Kaz in Hobart and you saw a fellow with his collar up, it was like, he's from Sydney. It was a Sydney thing. And, I met Curse in 2010. He did his first rap battle in Melbourne at Got Beef when I did mine. So my first time I come to Melbourne for rap, that's when I met Cursor. And so I've been lucky enough to be a part of and watch his journey since then. And then watch the influence, man. Just watch it, spread. And, even the kids in my hometown, went from wearing baggy jeans and T-shirts to wearing polo shirts and short shorts with TNs. And, I watched the whole country morph. And these kids are exactly the same. They're just like, a lot of the time, young men without, their dads around or male guidance. And so they look for something else to connect to. And then they see this culture, the perceived brotherhood, you know what I mean? And I talk to so many kids in the street that recognise me from my music and, kids that call themselves Eshes and they don't understand any of this history or anything and try to help them understand what they're doing. Because, you don't, once again, like with myself, there was so many different things that I was doing that I didn't really understand. I was just reflecting, and I was just trying to fit in, man. And I know that's what these kids are doing too. That's why they go so hard at wearing all this sort of stuff, because they're making up for something. Like for a kid, if a kid's got a lot of self-worth, he doesn't need to wear the most expensive shoes or the cool shit. It's the kids that are lacking, the worth in there, that think, well, if I have a Gucci belt, that makes me worth it. You know what I mean? And yeah, so it's very interesting. That's to watch it unfold and watch it grow in different ways. And I talk to Curse quite regularly, and lately I have been, and it's very interesting to just talk with him about over the history and the influence and all the different stuff that we've navigated, and influences, drugs, mental health, and then success, fame, ego, like.
How does he deal with fame? Because I don't know. Obviously, I fucking don't know him, but I also don't know much about his character. He seems like, to me, he's a very to me, from how I see, he would be a very imposing figure.
How do you mean imposing?
Imposing, like as in he seems like he'd be very stoic, like he'd be very hard to read.
Yeah, he's very kind, man.
He's very. I wouldn't. I've never actually watched many interviews of him.
Yeah.
I've never watched like a long form chat of him, but I have heard from like boys that have opened for him and stuff that he's fucking really kind.
Yeah, he's very nice, and he really does give people. If you walk into his realm, he'll give you the time of day. And I think that's where it was the key to his success, because he was very confident in his music, and everyone was like, "Oh, who's this cocky cunt?" And they meet him, and he's like, "Hey, how you going?" Looks you in the eye, shakes your hand, and they're like, "Oh shit, he's actually real nice." And he catch heaps of people off guard with that, I guess.
He seems like he would. It's interesting to see how he navigated fame, because
he's had to deal with a lot. I know that. And he still does, and that's the hard bit of like fame, man. People see you through a different light. I know he's had to deal with some stalkers. He's had to deal with some really crazy shit.
He had like a cult fan base. He had like it gets to a point where you build such a culture and you don't have fans. You have like a cult following, and Cursor had a very much like Posse Shot in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Posse Shot have a very, very cult following. Like their fans are infatuated by the movement and the culture and what they represent, and rightly so. They're fucking, what they do is really cool.
Yeah, they've really built the culture up around themselves, and
they're their own thing. They're they've made a subculture within a culture.
Yeah, they really have, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to see how impactful it is, and yeah, spending time in Melbourne, and you see people wearing Posse Shot jumpers everywhere that don't even listen to them. So you know what I mean? Like they've trended in Melbourne culture so much that it's separate from what they're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the props to those fellas, man. They really have made such an impact in their sort of realm, and really brought that aesthetic back and built it into something new.
Yeah.
It's quite impactful.
Well, I won't let it go too long.
Yeah, no worries.
But
bro.
do you have any like music in the works? Do you have anything people should be looking out for?
Really at the moment, man, I released an album last year. It's called Books Closed, and it's by far my best album. I'd put it way above the album that I wrote in jail. And even last year, I just moved to Melbourne. I started just making music and putting it out. I wasn't even thinking of doing an album. And then like just before my birthday, I was like, I've got enough for an album. And just put it out. And listened to it back afterwards, and I was like, fuck.
That's good.
That's my best shit. It's the first time I've ever cried to my own music.
Interesting.
Because I wasn't trying to write it. I wasn't really trying to write it from a point of like exaggerating my character or
it was just true.
Or stroking my ego. I was trying to purge all that, man, because I've realized that the more that I chased, I guess, success or the realm of ego, a lot of people that I was drawing towards me were coming towards me for that, and so yeah, I really tried to purge it all, man, and make sure that I was speaking my deepest truth, and yeah, it really came out. But at the moment, man, like, yeah, coming over here to Adelaide has been a blessing. Doing this little tour with Pangea. We just did a show in Sydney and Melbourne, and then came to Adelaide. Yeah, I'm just at a wonderful point in my life of gratitude and just feeling centered. So I just do whatever, bro. See what's next, you know. I'm enjoying painting a bit, make some music. My partner, she's an amazing hip-hop artist, and she's really pushing women's turntablism in Australia. And I think there's a massive gender gap in Australian hip-hop that still really needs to be overcome.
It is very male-dominated.
Oh, so male-dominated. And it really, I think a lot of people in the scene don't realise how negative that can be sometimes, and to their own detriment, you know. Women are good at ruling, bruz.
Women are good at ruling.
You know what I mean? Like, men can conquer, but we need women to hold us together, bro. And when we live in a culture where we dismiss that, it ends up to fucking conquering. You know what I mean? So really, at my point in Australian hip hop, I'm really want to try and support the women, man. My homie Grace Chia, she's really going hard. I think she's going to be a big leader in this next generation of women in Australian hip hop. She's really killing it. Yeah, and I just want to keep just reminding people what the culture is. The more that I learn from the elders that are now in their 50s and still practicing it, the more it helps me guide my journey and trying to share it with the young fellas, because so many young fellas are really struggling at the moment. You know, young guys that I know who got in the scene when they're 17 and they got, you know, caught up in the party lifestyle and the fame and all that shit. They're all hitting 25, 26 now, and they're struggling because, yeah, they're still kind of lost and searching for something rather than searching for in here. So I'm trying to learn from the 50-year-olds to help get myself good so I can teach the youngins, you know what I mean, and keep connecting that up, because, yeah, so many of us lost young men get involved in the scene trying to fill that void, and I see, yeah, so many young fellas really struggling with it. And, you know, they think they need to rap about this, they think they need to be getting on the coke, they think they need to be doing this to be fit in that thing, but it's not sustainable. You know, you do that for your half-20s, as you know yourself. You hit a point, you're like, fuck, I've got to go listen to podcasts. You know what I mean? Like,
I need to lock myself in a fucking room.
Yeah.
Just so, detox for 4 years.
100%, man.
If you mitigate that point, you gain a lot more time.
100%. Yeah. And it's hard, man, when you... Like, when you're young and you're going through it, but then when you see the youngins doing the same thing, I get so triggered by it, because I'm like, you're doing exactly what I did, and it's not good.
It's so fun, but it's not good.
It's not good.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you realise in your 30s, when your health starts catching up with you and everything, you're like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? Yeah, there was some good memories, but, you know, it's an interesting one, man. So, yeah, I'm just really trying to support the right people in the culture. I feel like for me, man, I've had enough moments, you know what I mean? Like, I did a fucking concert in jail, I fucking wrote an album in jail, like Johnny Cash, you know, like, I've fucking been a part of some of the most influential moments of the culture. I really don't need anything more. I don't need any more ribbons on my sleeve. I just want to keep supporting the right people that are planting the seeds and help push it forward.
Well, you are Australia's very own Library of Alexandria of hip-hop and the street culture, so thank you for that. You are a national treasure, Greeley.
Hey, thank you for having me, man.
Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you enjoyed it.
I really did, bro. You got me tism flowing.
I got you tism flowing. Next time, whenever you're down, you're welcome on.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, no, let's keep going, man, and all the best to you, bro. I think you're doing a good thing, and Adelaide definitely needs more of this. More culture built within it, you know what I mean? Yeah. And the more that, this is such an interesting city for so many reasons. You can break it down in a million ways, and I know that, like in the podcast world, Australia is still fucking, you know, medieval times compared to America. You know, they've built their pop culture up so much over generations, and that same thing with Australians. Like, I don't know if we're that good. But the thing is, we've got just as many unique stories, unique people. Yeah, this country is some of the most craziest shit.
And we're funnier.
Yeah. Well, we have a very unique sense of humour, man.
It might not catch on to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But we're very naturally comedic people.
We're our own interesting black label vintage humans, you know. We've aged in our own unique way off in that cellar, you know. And due to the crazy influences of, like, colonisation, and then different cultures coming to the country and are building up. There's so much to still learn and to share, I think.
Well, thank you, Greeley.
Thank you, bro.
You're a legend.
God bless, man.
Wuss.